Hi, welcome to Sacred Spaces. My name's Glenn Noble. On tonight's episode, we look at urban bushfire design. We follow the journey of one couple who rebuilt their home from a ruin into a spectacular home. With me, I have Malcolm and Diana, who are the survivors of the bushfire. Malcolm, tell me about your experience.
It was the 7th of February 2009. We'd seen the smoke gathering on to the west of us. We'd been preparing and thought that we had a pretty good plan. We had plenty of water, we had fire pumps, we had the area around our house was clear and clean and mowed to just an eighth of an inch off the ground.
Sure.
And we were expecting to do pretty well against whatever came.
So Diana, what went wrong?
A number of things, really. I guess what our house was made of is one of the problems, because it was an old weatherboard. It was on wooden stumps, so off the ground. A lot of things happen that you don't expect, like 20 minutes before Malcolm was gathering up cattle, and I was thinking to myself, thank heavens he showed me how to turn the pump on. We had a practice this morning, so I started to water around the house, really. And then eventually Malcolm came back, and he was doing the main fighting in the front. I was sort of going in and out of the back door through the laundry with buckets of water and putting them on the garden that was sort of closest by. And of course you don't anticipate the ferocity of the whole thing, really. You just can't be in,
Two places at once. Yeah.
well, more than two places.
Yeah, so Malcolm, it must have been a horrific experience.
It didn't have time to be horrific. It was just everything happening, and you're kind of writing off one possibility after another. There was one point where I was standing at the corner. I had these 4 fire hoses. I could see the flames creeping slowly across the grass towards the machinery shed, but I couldn't leave the spot where I was to go and use the other hose, and so $150,000 worth of machinery just went up in smoke because I had to stay put. And I must admit I'd never imagined that I wouldn't be able to move around the house. I just had to stay there to protect this one vulnerable point, and when the water went, well, then everything went.
Yeah. So the point was that there were a number of vulnerabilities in the design, not just.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's a 100-year-old farmhouse. It's not. It was never designed to withstand a bushfire like Black Saturday. But it wasn't just those sort of vulnerabilities, like a window frame catching fire, or it's the whole idea of if anything can go wrong, it will. There are just so many possibilities in a firestorm like that for something to fail, and so you have to have plans A, B, C, D, E, and then hopefully at the end you're still standing there even if all of those plans fail. And we were fortunate because this is a grazing property. We weren't surrounded by bush, so when everything did fail, we were able to still survive standing in the open.
So tell me about the rebuilding plans. How did that go?
Well, we took a long time to make decisions about rebuilding. In fact, the first thing we did was the one building on the property that survived was an old dairy, and that taught us a little bit about rebuilding. It was built on a slab. It had a brick wall up about 1 metre, and it didn't have a ceiling in it. It was made out of old bush poles, but it didn't burn, and we would presume because the fire couldn't get into anything to burn. So we moved into there. We put some interior walls in it. We blocked off the walls that had been open with tin. We insulated it really well, and it became quite a comfortable cottage. But that told us a few things about what we needed to build in the future. It needed to be at least as good as our old dairy was, in order to survive the fire. Our community, we established a rebuilding group, and we ran a lot of workshops to provide information and resources. I think we ran about 25 different sorts of workshops on everything from foundations and septics and windows and design and all sorts of things. And during that period, we gave a lot of thought to what we might end up living in. I must admit, early on, I just wanted to get a house done, and I would have gone out and probably bought off the plan something quite unsuitable. So I'm glad that we didn't do that we did take that extra time. But we actually took about 3 years before we started to build. 4. And then it took us 3 years to complete.
So Diana, what was it like? I mean, there must have been a lot of trauma, a lot of loss over that period of time.
Yeah, there was, and it takes people a long time to come to terms with their situation and what they're going to do. And the Renewal Association that started up not only talked about building how to recover your things really, but it also was important in getting the community together and doing activities together, being together so we could talk about it. So it was quite cathartic in some ways, but all of that work kept us pretty busy in those 4 years, and we really didn't have the headspace, I don't think, did we, to actually build in that first 4 years really. Yeah.
So let's move on to the next location and just look at what was your next step in rebuilding. So we've been joined by Justin Leonard, who's from the CSIRO and is a guru on urban bushfire design. Malcolm, can you tell us the significance of this location?
Well, on our right there behind us is the hay shed. That's where the house used to be. We decided to relocate further up the hill, partly to get away from the road reserve, because that's where so many of the embers came from on Black Saturday. The view, of course, was pretty important to us, but we were also after a separation. We wanted to be well away from the hay shed, because there's lots of combustible material in there, and also the potential for lots of embers to come out of it.
Sure.
So getting a separation from the buildings was important.
Justin, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's the key point in sort of selecting a site, is to actually find an appropriate place well away from other buildings. You don't want any risk of when they burn down, and if they burn down, directly threatening your actual building. You want completely clear open space as far as you can around a house.
And how easy is that to find?
In a rural context, I guess easy. In a more built-up urban context, I guess technically impossible in most cases.
So Justin, what do you think about this location?
I think this is a far more practical one, because we've moved away from any other big infrastructure like a hay shed. Getting that real clearance between other buildings is one of the first fundamental points. You don't want to be living in or trying to defend a house that's so close to another building. You've actually got to defend 2 buildings to actually survive.
Sure. And the great thing about this is that there's a lot of space around here, so you've got a lot of choice in terms of making that new location.
Yeah, I guess we've got the freedom to move well away and pick a nice place where there's a nice balance between having an aesthetic place, like with a good view, but also having that essential separation.
Okay, well, let's go and have a look at the new building. So Malcolm, can you tell us in a bit more detail about the location of the new house?
Sure. I don't want you to think that all of our decisions are just about bushfires, but we wanted to move to a location where we had a decent view, and also we wanted to be able to look over our property so that we could keep an eye on our cattle, and we couldn't do that from where the house was before. But also we did want to move away from the road because that was the source of a lot of the embers. So we're about 200 metres from the road on this point. We've benched a site into the hill, and the house is built on a slab, just like our dairy was. The material of the house is rammed earth, which of course won't burn, but for aesthetic reasons we love the rammed earth, the textures of it and the feel of it, the look of it. We've made sure really by the way the house is designed and the area leading up to it that there won't be any direct flame on the house, and that embers won't be getting underneath it. This is a gravel driveway. There's a gravel hard area for parking vehicles, so there isn't going to be any sort of grass fire approaching it. And when we get up there, I'll show you some of the other design features.
Justin, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think separation is fantastic, but I guess with every site there are a few trade-offs. So we are sort of up and a little bit more exposed to the wind. So I guess, that puts the onus on the design of the house to be able to withstand those extra wind loading and ember loads that'll come with choosing a nice site with a good vantage point.
Well, let's go up and look at the house.
Great.
Hi, so we're now joined by Mark Holland from the CFA. Welcome, Mark. And we'd like to maybe talk about the actual house itself, Malcolm, and some of the wonderful highlights of this beautiful home.
All right. Well, again, I don't want you to think that we just had bushfire in all of our design decisions. Lots of these things are about aesthetics. They're about environmental issues. They're about the climate and the way it's going to change. So we made decisions that were particular to us and to our site, but we also solved lots of the issues that come about with the bushfire attack level. We're not likely to have direct flame on the house. You'll see that we're standing on a brick paved area. We've just come off a gravel driveway. The material behind us is rammed earth, so it's a very solid 400mm thick wall, and it's an insulated wall. It has a wedge of insulation in the centre of it. The windows that you'll see behind us, they're a very clever window. They're wood on the inside, but they're aluminium on the outside. They aren't going to catch fire off embers like our last windows did, but the driving issue there as well as fire is I don't want to have to paint window frames in my old age, so that's going to take care of that. Some similar considerations, the veranda beams above us are actually a Colorbond steel. Again, I won't have to paint them, but they aren't going to burn. In fact, the only thing that might burn on this veranda are the iron bark poles of the veranda. They've got a fire rating that's quite high for timber, and I expect to have enough time to walk around and put them out if they did catch on fire. So it's, those issues are both aesthetic, but they're also about preparing for a bushfire. Sure. The other thing that I think is important here, we are on a hill. Fire travels pretty fast up a hill compared with either going downhill or even on the flat. And on Black Saturday, we had cattle on these hillsides, and they survived. And part of the reason is because we graze the grass until it's, you know, virtually dirt in the summertime to make sure that it's a safe and prepared area if there is grass fire.
Mark, what are your thoughts and comments on the design of the house?
Yeah, look, I think it's really important when Malcolm was talking before that he acknowledged that there's certain regulations and things that have to be met, but then he's thought about those regulations, thought about the other things that are really important to him and in the design and usability of the space, and then gone on and brought it all together in something that I guess at the end of the day far exceeds those basic requirements. And I guess you might even look at it as more sort of a benchmark or best practice about where, you know, some of this good design and thinking about the bushfire requirements can get you.
So Malcolm, we're now at the rear of the house. Could you tell me about some of the design features?
Perhaps I'll start with, you can see that the wind is blowing fairly consistently.
Yes, we can.
On Black Saturday, the wind was strong enough that trees were broken off. These are mature, big, solid, thick trees were broken off, say 5 metres from the ground. So it was particularly windy then, but we get some terrible winds up here any time of year, particularly November. One of our huge considerations it was making certain that the wind wouldn't blow the roof off. So the whole building has been over-engineered. We've got cyclone tie downs on every roof truss and well, just about every place that we could put them. The trusses are connected to the rammed earth walls every 600 millimetres by long threaded rod, and you know, everything is that we could possibly do to make sure that that roof stays on has been done. And like I say, it's not just for bushfires, that's for any time of the year, but certainly in the bushfires that was essential. The other thing that you'll notice if you have a look at the house is we put a ring main around the outside of the house on the veranda, which brings water in a 40mm pipe to brass copper fittings that mean that we can connect fire hoses onto that. That can be run from a diesel pump, but also in the hill in front of us, which is perhaps another 30 metres to the top of the hill. We've got a 25,000 litre concrete tank on the top of that hill, and that'll provide water for that ring main. And we've also got 2 dams providing water to another ring main that's around the outside of the garden area, so that we can have sprinklers and fire hoses on that. But should the pumps give out or something goes wrong, we've still got the gravity-fed water from that concrete tank on the top of the hill.
Mark, obviously, Malcolm's put a lot of thought into the design of this house. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's not just the design of the house, also, you know, the active defence and what else might need to happen on the day. So again, Malcolm's talking about thinking of those things on many different levels and what might go wrong or what may go wrong will go wrong, sort of a thing. So he's the backup diesel pump, but we've got a gravity-fed water system. I think the other really important thing is the wind. So if you think about it, on a bad fire day, the conditions are severe in their own right, and then when you start seeing large fires in the landscape, you actually start seeing winds at low sort of cyclonic levels damaging buildings. And normally our building codes in these sorts of areas aren't dealing with that kind of force on the building and that kind of impact on the building. So, you know, it is really important to then move on, and the sorts of things Malcolm's spoken about, which aren't necessarily hard to do. It's just gone to that next level to make sure that you know, the roof stays on or doesn't open up and allow embers in and the like. So there's a few other features here that I think are important too that Malcolm didn't quite get to. We've got the nice grassy lawn before we get to the veranda, And then the furniture on the veranda and things is non-combustible as well. So he's chosen furniture that's steel, so he's not adding to that fuel load by bringing other things in and around the house. Yeah.
So guys, we're now inside your lovely home, and I must say there's a real sense of peace and calm and serenity surrounding these walls. So Diana, tell me about the livability.
Well, after living 7 years in a shed, it's there's a lot of things that are positive about being here. I love the texture of the rammed earth, and we did invest a fair bit of money into insulation, not only within the rammed earth walls, but also quite a lot in the roof. And I think we feel the benefit of that now, because we seem to have fairly even temperature in here. It's probably about 20 degrees, 19 or 20 degrees most of the time, isn't it?
That's right.
Without any heating at all. So that's, you know, a nice sort of level to be living at on a regular basis. I think we feel the warmth of the timber as well, and I like that about the windows. I'm really happy that I could have some timber windows inside, because we had talked about aluminium being necessary for, well, practical reasons, but as well as the fire reasons. But I did want to have timber on the inside just for the warmth of it and the look. What else? The space, you know, the fact that you can spread out, you've got room to sort of live. I mean, we like to live in an open way, so this large room is the way we live. You know, we spend most of our time here. What else? Fire. The fire's nice on occasion, but I think I insisted on having some instant heating because we're not getting any younger. So chopping firewood, you know, isn't attractive when you're 80. But
well, I mean, I love the space that we've got now. That is terrific. I particularly like that we used a lot of recycled materials where we could get them, both the veranda poles outside, and the flooring is actually cut out of old telephone poles, Queensland telephone poles. The outside's iron bark, and the floor in here is spotted gum, and that lends a lovely feel to the place. You'll notice too that we didn't use floor to ceiling windows. We'd had those in a previous home, and they limit where you can put furniture, is one of the things we found. But we also discovered that they're not advisable as in a fire-prone area either, because you want to have some sort of hard surface meeting the ground. So we actually met two requirements there in one, and of course it meant that we were able to afford these fairly large picture windows that look out onto the view, and that's probably one of the most striking features of the home, or at least certainly of this room.
It's been quite an amazing journey since the Black Saturday fire. I mean, how would you sum it up, you know, in a few words, if possible?
I don't think it is possible to sum it up in a few words, but I will say that we have in our minds this idea about the way life might be mapped out, and an event like that comes along and changes everything. It changes what you do the next day, but it also changes what you're going to be doing in 10 years' time. And clearly we're still living in the same place, we're still living amongst the same people on the same property, but all of our lives have actually changed direction, and we've learned an enormous about ourselves and about the environment that we live in, and you know, hopefully we'll go on living here and coping with the changes that come into the future. But it's certainly, you called it a journey, and that's right. It certainly has been a journey.
Well, thanks very much, Malcolm and Diana, for spending some time with us. It has really been an honour seeing your home and also seeing how you've survived such a traumatic experience and put it into amazing design. So thanks very much. Hi, so this is Glenn Noble, the Sacred Spaces, and we'll see you next time.